Now, hello, my beautiful, beautiful ladies out there. How are you guys doing? Did you enjoy your Labor Day? I hope you did. I hope that you were able to relax and sit back with your family and your friends and just had a great time, right? Because now, unfortunately, the summer is over. And I'm like, no, I wanted to stay. My birthday month is September. So people are like, well, you should be happy. Your birthday's coming up. But guess what? I hate when September comes because I really know when September comes, here comes the cold weather and I love the summer, right? I don't like it when it's too hot, but I think my favorite time is really spring. But I definitely love summer too, as long as it's not too hot. But wintertime, even though I am used to it, I don't like it anymore for some reason. So, anywho, it is what it is, right? Well, you guys know what I'm about to say. That you are absolutely beautiful. You're beautiful to me. I don't care what size you are. I don't care what you look like. I find that as ladies, we are the best in how we carry on with our lives. We can have so much going on, but we hold it all down as women. So you need to pat yourself on the back and be proud of that because I'm proud of you. And I think that you're absolutely beautiful. So if no one has ever told you that, or even if they haven't said it today, I hope that I was the first one to tell you that I find you to be absolutely fantastic and you are absolutely beautiful to me. So you are listening to the Estrogen Chronicles, Her Plate, Her Power. I am your host, functional nutritionist, Gail Thorpe, at your service. And I would love for you to grab your pen and paper. I want you to grab your soda. Nope, so I'm just kidding. Your pen and paper and your tea or your decaffeinated coffee and some water or maybe a little glass of wine. And let's get into it. Now, you guys know I didn't mean no soda. So I just like to have fun. Okay, so today, speaking of having fun and relaxing ourselves, today I want to talk about something that a lot of people are dealing with right now because there's just so much going on in the world today. And for us ladies, we, as you guys know, when I talk about different things, we process things differently. And there are attention that needs to be drawn to certain topics. So I want to talk a little bit about depression and anxiety today. Okay. Because I think that, really I know depression and anxiety are mental health conditions that often are overlapping each other. So let's talk a little bit about what are they. So with depression, it is characterized by persistent sadness and loss of interest, low energy, and changes in thinking or your sleep pattern. Now, when we have anxiety, this actually involves excessive worry, nervousness, or fear often accompanied by physical symptoms, right? Because if we have a lot of anxiety, our heart starts to race faster. Sometimes we will start having pains. So it really affects us. It really, really does. So with women, we have hormonal shifts like our menstrual cycle, our pregnancy, and postpartum. We have the perimenopause or the menopause. And these conditions can actually are pretty common when it comes down to depression. Depression is often incorporated in these conditions, and it makes it more intense. Okay. Now we have talked about every last one. We've talked about except for pregnancy, that's coming up. We have talked about postpartum a little bit, but we definitely talked about perimenopause and menopause, and we dealt with menstrual cycle and when having heavy periods and things of that nature. And if you notice and if you can remember that a lot of times some of the symptoms that I talked about with these different conditions also had something to do with depression, right? Because it deals with our hormones. And then when we also will have social pressures and life responsibilities, that actually adds extra weight to the condition of depression and anxiety. Okay? So this is how important this is. This is how important this is because, again, everything that I've talked about up until this point has some element of depression to it or even possibly anxiety. So again, this is not something we want to have, right? If we can help it, but it's definitely tied into our hormones, okay? Some of the symptoms that we want to look out for when it comes down to depression, for instance, we want to look at persistent sadness or emptiness feeling and loss of interest in unusual activities. So usual activities that we do, we now no longer have interest in that. Okay? We start to deal with fatigue and slow movements or thoughts. Well, as I mentioned, we'll have sleep changes like insomnia or oversleeping. A lot of times our weight changes, and then our appetite. Now, every woman is different. Some women, when they're dealing with depression, they don't want to eat anything, okay? And then they start to lose weight. But then you have some women that want to eat everything because they also have some emotional eating attached to the depression, and they want to eat everything, and they start to actually gain weight. And then there is the feelings of worthlessness and feeling guilty. You have difficulty concentrating. Your thoughts could be of death or even suicide because you start to feel like, why am I here? I don't need to be here. Why am I here? I'm worthless. Okay? This is a very serious topic, guys, and that's why I wanted to address it today because in dealing with a lot of my clients, they are dealing with a lot of depression and anxiety. One or the other, or sometimes both. And with everything that's going on in the world today, it's coming out more and more that a lot of people are dealing with this. So I wanted to talk about it because I feel that it needs to be talked about. It needs to be addressed. And I want people to understand too what the symptoms are because sometimes, we don't really know what they are. You may think you're depressed, maybe you're not. Maybe just having a little moment, right? Or you haven't been checked and, it could be getting worse possibly. There's a lot of different factors. So that's why I wanted to definitely make sure that I talk about it because here we talk about everything dealing with women's health in all kind of areas. So anxiety symptoms, for instance, it's that constant worry or dread, right? Have you ever just constantly worry all the time about everything? Well, there is such a thing as healthy worrying, but there is such a thing as when you're constantly worrying and you're starting to feel dread. And then you have a restlessness or a being on edge type of feeling. You start to have a racing heart and you have palpitations. You start to also have muscle tension and headaches. And then you may have, you're going to have trouble sleeping. Sometimes people sleep too much when they're depressed or have anxieties, and sometimes they have trouble, meaning they don't sleep enough. And then you have difficulty focusing and a lot of stomach upset because you're constantly on edge. You're constantly having that feeling of dread, and you're constantly worrying, and it starts now to affect your stomach. Okay? So with chronic depression and anxiety, it affects nearly every symptom. As I just mentioned a little bit about hormones, for instance, with that, it actually alters our cortisol, which is our stress hormone. We talked about that before. Our estrogen and our progesterone balance. It starts to affect that. Okay? It starts to affect our brain chemistry. So low serotonin or dopamine and GABA activity. And these are the things that affects our moods. We don't want that, right? But that's what it does. It literally starts to affect our brain chemistry, our immune system. We start to have higher inflammation, and it's lowered immune defenses, right? So when we are constantly under depression and we're constantly having anxiety, it literally starts to lower our immune system. Have you noticed, if you are dealing with this, that you're constantly getting colds all the time? You're like, why am I getting these colds all the time? Right? Because your immune system is lower because you've been dealing with this for so long. You had chronic depression and chronic anxiety, which means you're dealing with it over a period of time, that it starts to literally lower your system. And digestive system, for instance, IBS. Okay? So that is irritable bowel syndrome. And that's a condition that is 1 trillion% affected by our stress and anxiety levels. It makes it harder for us to eat food sometimes, because if you have IBS, you immediately have a feeling of having to use the bathroom, and you could either experience diarrhea or constipation. Okay? And you'll have appetite change like I just talked about. You may have an excessive appetite where you want to eat everything, or you may have an appetite where it's very low. You don't want to eat anything. Okay? Then you have heart health risk. When you are dealing with depression and anxiety, it actually increases the risk of hypertension and cardiovascular disease. How about that? And then our bones. So prolonged high cortisol can actually weaken our bone density. You heard that. So this is how important it is to get a hold of your stress and your depression and your anxiety. You see how many systems in your body it actually affects? And it literally affects your bone density, right? So now we're opening up opportunity for osteoporosis. Our bones start to become weakened. We can have muscle atrophy, which is hard for us to move around. We start to lose our mobility. This is how much stress, depression, anxieties can do to us and can affect us. Now, we want to seek our healthcare provider if symptoms last 2 weeks or longer and interfere with our daily life. So if you find that you are feeling depressed, I mentioned about you start to lose interest in activities, you no longer you're tired, but it's a different kind of tired. You're trying to get sleep and you're getting sleep, but you're still waking up feeling tired. and you're dealing with your appetite changes, all of these different things, right? If you start to experience these symptoms for 2 weeks or longer, it is now time to see your healthcare professional. Okay? If you feel that you're unable to cope with daily tasks, and when I say daily task, I mean just getting up in the morning, fixing a breakfast for yourself or your family. You know, maybe even going to work. It's hard for you to go into work, if whether you work at home or whether you work, out in the office. You find it hard to pull yourself together. You find it very difficult. And it's a different kind of feeling versus it just being a one-off situation. It really is a strain for you to have to do just simple daily tasks. And then there may be some thoughts of self-harm or suicide, God forbid, right? But this is the reality, because remember, being under depression or anxiety can change your brain chemistry. So when you have it for a long period of time, you start to actually feel bad thoughts. You start to feel that no one likes you. Why should you be here? You're a failure, right? These are the things that your mind starts to play tricks on you and starts to tell yourself. And then if you're looking at other people or your friends or your family or possibly social media, you start to compare yourself and say, well, I'm not as good as her, or I'm not as pretty as she is. And then you start to feel the self-harm. Come on. And then you start having physical symptoms like chest pain, dizziness, severe insomnia, and you start to become overwhelmed. Then it's time to start to see your doctor, to see your healthcare professional, because they need to check you. They need to make sure. Like I said, sometimes our symptoms could be an overlap of something else. But whenever we have any type of symptoms of anything that we simply just cannot get rid of after a while, then we definitely need to make sure and seek attention. Now, when you go to your healthcare professional, of course, they're going to do blood work. They want to make sure and rule out any type of thyroid issue, anemia. They're going to check for vitamin D or B12 deficiency, right? Definitely B12, because that has a lot to do with our energy. So if you come in and you're saying, I'm so tired, I'm so fatigued, I just can't seem to get myself together, that is definitely opening, if you will, for checking your B12. Okay? And they're going to do screening tools, like doing a questionnaire for depression and anxiety, to see the severity of it, right? Because sometimes you just have an episode of maybe you are in school and you might have scored lower than you wanted to on your test. So you got a little depressed about that and had a little anxiety about it leading up to taking a test. Well, that may be not as severe, right? Because we all have a quick moment of feeling kind of depressed about something. It could be something you saw on TV. It could have been a movie that made you feel a little depressed, or maybe even had anxiety. But I'm talking about prolonged depression, prolonged anxiety is what I'm talking about. And that is how they take the questionnaire to see the severity of it. So some of the things, of course, they may recommend will be cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, which is basically like a talk therapy. It's natural. That's something I would recommend because it is natural. They may also suggest antidepressants, okay, and anti-anxiety medications if it's needed. Well, here, I would never tell someone not to take medications. If your doctor recommended that you are to take it, then you are to take it. But one thing is for sure. If you make some lifestyle changes, and if you can dig into why you feel depressed and why you have anxiety, there might be some changes naturally where you can kind of hopefully avoid the root of going and taking medication. And then, of course, my thing is lifestyle prescription, which is dealing with exercise, giving you, making sure you have a good sleep hygiene and stress reduction. And of course, what you're eating. Okay? That is what's important, right? Because see, medicine is temporary. Because if you take medication, for instance, I'll use blood pressure. You can have hypertension and take your blood pressure medicine, and it may bring your pressure down. But if you stop taking the medication, what do you think is going to happen? Do you think your pressure is going to stay down, or is it going to go back up? It's going to go back up. Why? Because the medicine is kind of like a Band-Aid. It's not really addressing why you're depressed. Why you have high blood pressure. It's not really addressing that. It could be because of your weight. It could be because of your salt intake, right? It could be lack of exercise. There's so many things. Of course, stress, right? So the goal is really to find out why you're having the high blood pressure. Now you may need to take the medicine for a moment, or maybe you may not have to take it at all, because if you can deal with the root cause of the problem, that's always the best way. So now there are actually supplements that you can take to help with your depression and your anxiety. But you always know what I'm about to tell you. If you are taking medication of any kind, okay, you want to make sure and check with your healthcare professional that you can take the supplements that I'm going to mention to you. You don't want to just go run out and take it, okay? So I always have to put that out there because I always want you guys to do the right thing. Now, if you can take it and if it doesn't interfere, then let's go. So omega-3 fatty acid helps to support your brain health. And remember, I told you how being depressed actually affects your brain chemistry, okay? So this will help it. And then vitamin D. Low levels are linked to depression. Did you know that? Low levels of vitamin D is actually and can be linked to depression. So we need to check those levels. Magnesium. Magnesium helps to calm the nervous system. It actually does. Okay? And then a B complex vitamins, which is very essential for mood and energy. Remember I said B12 is energy, right? So we need to make sure we're taking our Bs because Bs help with mood and energy. And then let's take a look at some adaptogens. So we have ashwagandha and rhodiola. Okay, and these are adaptogens. I can't talk today. That actually reduce stress and anxiety. Okay? All right. And then we want to take a look at probiotics because there is a connection between the gut and the brain. They're actually a connected of support. So if we can get our gut under control, it helps our brain and vice versa. So I talk a lot about your gut, and I've talked about in other situations because I don't think you guys understand how important it is to have your gut in order, right? Because in the medical profession, we call the gut is your second brain. So it's very important, okay, that your gut is under control because there is blood chemistry that's made in the gut. Okay, so that helps us. So that's why I talk a lot about it. So now it's time to take back our plate. What do we mean by that? You should know by now. Taking back our plate means that what we put on our plate is going to be the nutrition that we need for whatever the condition is. And that means it gives us power. It gives us power to take control of our condition. So just because you were diagnosed with something, it doesn't mean that it's permanent. Doesn't mean that. You'd be surprised that lifestyle prescription can do so much wonders for you. And food, absolutely. So, We want to take a look at eating leafy greens like our spinach and kale. This is rich in folate and magnesium. You've heard me mention that before. Our fatty fish, salmon and sardines, for instance, which is rich in omega-3s. And then whole grains like oats and quinoa. This helps to give us a steady blood sugar. And then it also helps give us the B vitamins that we need. And fermented foods like yogurt, kimchi, kefir. Again, the gut-brain health. We need that. We definitely need that. And then nuts and seeds like walnuts and pumpkin seeds, which give us magnesium and zinc. And dark chocolate. 70% of it actually boosts serotonin and endorphins. You know, like when you're exercising and you feel healthy, you feel great, you feel good. It's releasing endorphins, right? So having dark chocolate will help us with that. And then we want to do colorful fruits and veggies, which provides our antioxidants while helping to reduce inflammation. So I can't reiterate enough, ladies, how important it is for us to eat the proper foods based upon our lifestyle, our conditions that we may have. We really, really can take back our power by taking back our plate. If you haven't noticed that up until this point, right? Because every condition that we have talked about, there was always some type of remedy through food. Okay? Now, foods that we need to avoid. Now, these are the foods that are going to exacerbate our depression and our anxiety. So you already can know probably some of what this is. Excessive sugar and refined carbs causes mood swings. Did you know that? Okay? So you wonder why when you are, eating a lot of sugar and refined carbs and you just start being so moody and your husband or your boyfriend don't want to be around you. It could be what you're putting on your plate that's causing it. In this case, it is. Alcohol causes depression. It's actually a depressant. Alcohol can cause depression. When people sometimes drink too much alcohol, they do start to become depressed. They may not necessarily be an alcoholic, but they're noticing that they're always feeling down in life. Now, have an occasional glass of wine from time to time is nothing wrong with that. But when you have too much of anything, that's when a problem happens. Caffeine can actually worsen anxiety and sleep problems. That should be a no-brainer because caffeine gives you that energy bolt that we all look for a lot of times in the morning, especially. So if you already feel, you have anxiety, you feel worried all the time, you're constantly feeling your heart is beating fast, taking anything with caffeine, whether it be soda or whether it is coffee, is going to make it worse. You're going to feel like your heart is coming out of your chest. Okay? And then processed foods that are high in additives and unhealthy fats. That's a no-brainer. We already know. We've talked about a lot of this, right? Because it's so important. And we just can't get away from it. Processed foods, guys, is just no good. For so many reasons. And for us ladies, because of it definitely attacks our hormones. We don't need it. We need to completely eliminate it in our lifestyle nutrition. Okay? Now, there are also some essential oils that can help with our depression. Again, essential oils can actually work for us, but again, we want to be careful when we're taking medicines, even with essential oils, because as we rub it on our bodies or even sometimes inhale it, it can actually alter some things in our medicines that we're taking, right? So we want to be careful with it, even though it's natural. So lavender, one of my favorites, of course, is very relaxing. It reduces anxiety. And then we have bergamot. That helps to uplift our moods. And chamomile, which is very soothing and it helps us to sleep. And then we have clary sage, which helps to balance female hormones. Okay? And then we have frankincense, which is also very grounding, and it eases that overwhelming feeling, because you start to feel overwhelmed when you have anxieties and depression. You really start to feel overwhelmed. So frankincense can actually, because it's very grounding, it helps to ease that. Okay? And of course, as I mentioned many times, you can put this in a diffuser. You can put it in your bath, or you can dilute it with massage oil. Whichever way you like to do, it all will help the same. Okay? All right. So let's talk a little bit about some exercises that we can do to help with our depression and anxiety. So walking in nature. That naturally helps to boost our serotonin, and it helps to reduce our stress. Just simply walking in nature, guys. And if you're not able to get to a park or a hiking trail to do that, you know what? Even if you walk in your backyard, right? You want to take off your shoes because that helps you to ground yourself. And I tell you, just a few moments of just walking around in your backyard without your shoes, I recommend, is amazing. You're going to feel the energy of the earth. It's going to help to ground you, and you'll start to feel much better. We want to do yoga, which also helps to calm our nervous system, and it helps to improve our balance. And then we can do Pilates or gentle strength training, which helps to build resilience, and energy. Now, here's one of my favorites, and that is dancing. Dancing like no one is watching. Okay? What dancing does, it actually increases your dopamine and helps to release tension. And you know what? You don't have to be the best dancer. You don't have to be someone that's going to be on Dancing with the Stars, right? You can just simply turn on some music that you enjoy and just dance. It literally feels great, right? And you don't have to be in step or act like you're doing an audition. Just dance. Whatever that may be, but that helps. That helps to increase your dopamine and releases the tension. And it gets your mind off of yourself. Because sometimes when we're also going through depression and anxiety, we focus so much on ourselves that we're not living our life. And sometimes doing things for others helps a lot too. Meaning like going to the hospital and seeing people less fortunate than yourself. Maybe reading to them. They always have someone that may, come to the hospital and you can see a person that may be sick and just read to them or, maybe watch a little TV with them. Just getting your mind off of yourself for a moment can help and do tremendous things for you. Not to mention, it helps you to also see, if you took that route, that you're not alone in life when it comes down to having issues, and that there's always someone that's worse off than you. Okay? And then doing breath work. Meditation helps to regulate stress, the stress response. So if you learn how to breathe in and breathe out. Matter of fact, we're going to do right now a little bit. We're going to go ahead and breathe in. You're going to hold it. And then we're going to breathe out. Right? And we can do that right from our seat. We can do that at any time but we need to practice more breathing, getting control of the breathing, because when we are under depression and anxiety, our breathing is very choppy, right? So this will help us to regulate the breathing better, which helps to bring down the stress as well. Okay? All right. So with women, depression and anxiety are deeply linked to body symptoms, as we talked about. Again, our hormones and our lifestyle. And the most powerful approach combines medical, if needed, nourishing foods, targeted supplements, aromatherapy, and movement. Okay? All right, guys. So we've come to that moment where your gift is coming. If you listen to me enough, you'll be laughing because I like to have fun. Okay. So this particular juice that I'm about to give you is going to help with stress relief. It's going to help with anxiety, right? So we're going to do 1 cup of strawberries, which provides antioxidants and vitamin C for stress relief. We're going to do 1 cup of blueberries, which helps to protect our brain cells and supports memory and mood. We're going to do 2 oranges that are peeled. Okay, that's going to be our vitamin C boost and provide a natural sweetness. We're going to do 1 medium carrot, which is going to give us the beta carotene and help to support our nervous system health. We'll do a 1/2 inch of turmeric root or a teaspoon of ground turmeric, which is anti-inflammatory. And then we're going to do a little tiny pinch of black pepper, which actually helps to activate the turmeric. Okay? Those 2 are like, they work together. They're like peanut butter and jelly. So we're going to juice all the ingredients, or we can blend it and strain if we don't have a juicer. We're going to go ahead and stir in that black pepper at the end. And we're going to pour it into a chilled glass and enjoy. Now, that is important, guys, because immediately I told you before, any type of juice that you're taking that I recommend, you want to do it as soon as possible so it can be able to absorb into your body better and for the nutrients. Now, why does this particular juice work? Well, first of all, the berries helps in the brain boosting polyphenols, okay? Oranges help to give the natural serotonin support. The carrots actually help to stabilize blood sugar, and it gives a comforting sweet base. And of course, the turmeric and the black pepper reduces inflammation, which is linked with a low mood. Okay? Okay. So again, we have choices, guys. We have choices with everything in life, right? So whether you're dealing with depression or anxiety, whether you're dealing with menopause or perimenopause, there is always an area for you to take back your plate, because I'm telling you guys, I can't reiterate enough. Proper nutrition is what our body craves for, is what our body needs. Right? And there's absolutely no condition out there that there's some form of nutrition that won't help it. I promise you that. But we have to be consistent. We can't expect to, take this juice, for instance, and one time and not do the other things that I talked about when it comes down to breathing and when it comes down to exercise and, of course, our overall eating. Right? You have to do it all together. If you're really, really serious about taking back your life and taking back your plate, you have to be consistent. Okay? So just remember that. And also remember that if you are taking any kind of medicine, all of the things I mentioned, just discuss it with your healthcare professional just to make sure that it's okay for you to do it. Okay? And if they say, hey, you can, then I say to you, go for it immediately, right? Because that's how important it is. Okay, guys, as I always say, I need you to share this podcast. Share it, share it, share it. It is so important, guys, because that helps me to continually provide you this great information. I hope that you feel that it's great information. I try my best to cover things that pertain to us, okay, and do my research on it. But I really, really need for you to share, tell your friends about it, tell your family about it, because that just helps me to continually do this work, which I love doing this work. I love being able to teach and help you to understand how nutrition and lifestyle prescription, which is making lifestyle changes, can actually change the dynamic of your health. Okay? And as you always know, I always say wellness is not just a lifestyle, it is a focus. I'm sorry. It's not just a focus, it's a lifestyle. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. But yes, I mean that. It is a lifestyle, okay? You have to be able to understand how important it is to really focus in on being healthy. You have to make it a lifestyle for yourself, okay? And if you need more help, you need a program that's going to be catered to foods that you can eat for anxiety and for depression. And you need supplements that's going to be dedicated, good supplements that are actually practitioner-based supplements that you can't get in the stores. And most importantly, you need a partner. You need a partner that's going to be accountable to you, and you're going to be accountable to her or him. Well, in my case, it's me. Then I want to work with you. I want to work with you guys, so go to www.nutritionudesign.com. Go there. I have it where you can book a 30-minute session with me that is 100% free. And from there, we can see what else is next, right? I can provide you with over 200 practitioner-based supplements and over 200 laboratory panels. I dig into genetics as well as standardized laboratory testing to really get to the bottom line of your health, guys. And I'm proud about it. I love the work that I do. So please, please don't hesitate. Give me a call. Reach out to me. I would love to hear from you. And most importantly, I would love to work with you. Okay, guys, so I think we've covered a lot today. We talked about what is depression, what's anxiety. We talked about supplements that you can take that can help. Also, aromatherapy. We talked about exercise and how that works with it. We also talked about when you go to a doctor or when you need to see a doctor and some of the things that the doctor may recommend for you to do. We talked about it all, and most importantly, I gave you your gift, which is going to be a great juice that's going to help with the different parts of the body that it needs to help when it comes down to dealing with depression and anxiety. And again, this is a goal to be consistent with it in order for it to work. But just keep in mind, it can be reversed. It may take a little work, but it can be reversed. Okay, guys, with that being said, I hope that you have a fantastic rest of the week. I'm hoping that you did enjoy your Labor Day. Now that you're back at work, I know that's probably stressful. That's probably stressful in itself, but at least you know you're back and you have somewhere to go to make your money, which is a good thing, and enjoy your life. Enjoy your life so this way you don't have to be depressed and you don't have to have the anxiety. Okay? I look forward to next week and speaking with you. I hope again that you enjoy the rest of your day and have a fantastic week. Until next time, I will see you soon.